Hello friends and welcome into NFL Daily presented by BetDSI, the internet's #1 sportsbook. I am your host Tom Downey. Folks, the NFL trade deadline is almost here and we've got quite a bit of rumors to go through. So we'll start things off with, well, the main rumor still out there with what everyone wants to know. When the hell is Lev Bell going to show up to the Pittsburgh Steelers? He still hasn't reported to Pittsburgh, and the latest buzz is that maybe he'll wait until after the NFL trade deadline to do so, maybe even 4:01 Eastern on Tuesday once the NFL trade deadline is over. I'll give a funny anecdote here. Juju Smith-Schuster said he bought 100 Mega Millions tickets with the hope of winning so that he could get Lev Bell back on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Of course, he's not really being serious there for his main reason why, but for fantasy owners everywhere, I'm sure you guys want Lev Bell soon. Maybe he'll finally show up next Tuesday after the NFL trade deadline. Patrick Peterson kind of threw the NFL world into a craze. It was a very chaotic Monday when the report came out that he wanted to be traded. The New York Jets were one team that made a call for him, but the Cardinals said they're not going to trade him. And the report from the New York Daily News is that, well, Peterson's probably not going to get dealt. And in all likelihood, he's not going to get dealt at all because Peterson has now said he'll stick with the Arizona Cardinals. He met with President Michael Bidwell and the owner not that long. He met with them on Tuesday. They discussed ways for Peterson to be happy in Arizona and, most importantly, for the Cardinals to start winning games. So don't expect a Patrick Peterson trade. Arizona seems to have been able to convince him to stay because if he really wanted out, he probably could force his way out. He would have added a very high return. I'm thinking at least a first-round pick. But for Arizona, maybe they actually still should consider trading Pat Pete. I don't know if he necessarily fits their ideal timeline for winning because, frankly, this team is kind of a mess and they need to keep rebuilding. And the return that Peterson would have brought them, I think a first-round pick and possibly multiple day 2 picks would have been worthwhile. With that said, I understand why they don't want to trade him. You don't find that level of corner very easily. He is one of, if not the best cornerback in the NFL. So they've already typed K for keep. I think there's some good reason why to maybe at least consider trading him away if you really do want to go on into a full-on rebuild process. All right, folks, I'm hosting my free-to-play NFL Pick'em game on BetDSI. Here's how you can get in with first place getting $25. Chatsports.com/bet. Use promo code LIVE120 when you sign up for free. Then DM me on Twitter @WhatGoingDowney for the game link. Make your picks and do it, by the way, before Thursday night so you're not playing behind the 8 ball on that end. But again, that's chatsports.com/bet. Promo code LIVE120. Then DM me on Twitter @WhatGoingDowney. All right, some more NFL trade talk here. We'll stick with the cornerbacks as well. Gareon Conley. The report is that teams are interested in Conley, who has fallen out of favor in Oakland along with about half the roster at this point. And the Raiders are very clearly willing to blow everything up and totally restart. That could include Conley. Now, he's typically not the type of player that you want to trade away because he's a young first-round pick, and for a building team, you typically want to keep those guys. But he doesn't seem to fit the system, at least if you believe based on the snap counts for Conley. And I think he'd fetch a decent return. He's made some decent plays in his limited time in Oakland. Injuries are a red flag there. But if you're a team like, I don't know, say the Eagles, for example, or the Chiefs or the Redskins or one of those teams, maybe not Chiefs because Oakland's not going to do a deal with Kansas City, wouldn't you want to make a deal for Conley and get yourself a young, talented corner that's still on his rookie contract? I think it makes some sense there for other teams. Not sure it makes a ton of sense for the Oakland Raiders. As for the Raiders, look, they're blowing everything up. So which player will be traded next? Now, John Gruden has tried to say he doesn't think there's going to be any more trades, but we heard that about Khalil Mack. We heard it about Amari Cooper. Both those guys are now gone. So which player is going to be traded next for the Oakland Raiders? Let me know in the comment section. I'll put my money on Carl Joseph, another former first-round pick the Raiders don't seem to like anymore. All right, more cornerback trade talk. How about Janoris Jenkins? And the same report from CBS is that teams are sniffing around both Conley and Jenkins, and teams like the Eagles, the Patriots, and Steelers, fairly notable teams, all need cornerback help right now. Now with Jenkins, he's not going to fetch anywhere near the price that a Gareon Conley would for two main reasons. Number one, Jenkins is 30, all right? And frankly, he hasn't been the same guy that everyone is used to seeing play. He's actually been kind of bad this year. So that is a big red flag for teams that could trade for Jenkins. And by the way, He's due $10 million in salary the next 2 years each. That's a pretty high price tag. It might actually end up being a 1-year rental, so I think you're looking at maybe a mid-round pick for Jenkins. The good news is he's only due about $3.5 million, 3.2 or so for the rest of this season. So he's not going to fetch a big contract or big return. Might be more on the lines of the Damon Harrison deal for the Giants. Maybe you can get a similar Eli Apple trade, but then again, who do you throw out there at cornerback if you're the Giants? So should New York trade away Janoris Jenkins? Give me a like for yes, a wow face for no. I think yes. He no longer fits your winning timeline. Get something for him while you can, even if it's just a mid to late round selection. More Giants secondary talk here. How about Landon Collins? Now, Twitter has been a buzz about it because when the Giants traded away Harrison, it was a clear sign we're blowing everything up. Same with the Eli Apple trade. Landon Collins now is in the last year of his contract. He's going to get paid a ton of money this offseason. If you're the Giants and you're rebuilding, do you want to invest in that in terms of a safety? Now, I think it's worthwhile. I don't think the Giants will trade him away, but you can bet anything, any amount of money you want, and you'll win, that the Giants are going to get phone calls from teams like the Chiefs, maybe like the Cowboys, although I doubt Dallas can pull off a trade with the Giants since they're in the same division. But you can bet that teams will try to make a call for Landon Collins because he is one of the best young safeties in the entire NFL. I think he's a top 5 guy. I don't think the Giants would trade him, but you can bet that teams are going to make an effort too. How about some offensive talk now? Emmanuel Sanders, the Broncos wide receiver. Teams want him, which I'm not surprised by. A report from local Denver reporters is that the Broncos are getting the most calls about Emmanuel Sanders, but Denver, I think probably rightfully so, doesn't really want to send him away. He's Denver's best receiver. I don't expect a trade coming up here for Emmanuel Sanders. I don't think that makes sense for Denver. I think they would prefer to keep him and let him have a talented option there for Case Keenum and, well, I guess not Chad Kelly now. As for the other Denver Broncos wide receiver, there's not going to be a Demaryius Thomas trade. Now, Denver tried to trade him, and now reports have leaked out that, we don't want to trade him anymore. What really happened here is that Denver put Thomas on the trade block. They didn't get the offers that they wanted because Demaryius Thomas is declining and has actually already declined fully and carries a $14 million salary next year. As I've said before, Emmanuel Sanders is a better receiver than Demaryius Thomas. I don't think teams want to take on Thomas, who isn't as good as Sanders and actually costs more money. So, folks, which receiver would you rather trade for? Now, if we had asked this even last year, 2-3 years ago, I think most of you would have said Demaryius Thomas. But I've always said Emmanuel Sanders. I think he can do more for you in terms of route running and getting open. I love Sanders. He's the guy I would much rather trade for than Demaryius Thomas. I think NFL teams feel the same way. All right, another receiver here that I want to make mention of is DeSean Jackson. Now, the report from the Tampa Bay Times is that if the Bucs decide to sell, DeSean Jackson could be on the move. Now, Jackson is in the last year of his deal. Maybe you can get a mid-round pick back for him. Maybe a team like the Eagles decides that they want to go out and bring back DeSean Jackson. But the Bucs seem to not be giving up on the season, and from that perspective, it doesn't make sense to trade away DeSean Jackson. So I think this is a guy you might hear a little bit more buzz about as we get closer, especially if the Bucs end up losing another game coming up here. But I don't think you'll end up seeing DeSean Jackson get traded away. The Bucs are all in on this year because guess what? If they're not, Dirk Cutter is getting fired. If they don't make playoffs, or if they don't come close to it. So that's why I don't think you'll see DeSean Jackson get moved. All right, next up, this is a non-trade room here, but some good news. Everson Griffen has resumed team activities for the Minnesota Vikings, and this is great news for Griffen. Now, he has dealt with mental health issues this year. He's been away from the team. He's back now. That's a big boost for Minnesota, and of course, just for Everson Griffen, the person. And as he himself said, this is bigger than football. He's absolutely right there. Glad to see Griffen back with Minnesota. We'll see when he actually returns. I don't know if it'll be this week. I'm sure from a football perspective, the Vikings would love to have him against the Saints. But overall, good news for Griffen. He is back. And the Vikings, by the way, coming up, a very tough game. They now face the New Orleans Saints in what I think is actually one of the best games of the season. Two really good teams, two popular NFC threats. So who you guys got? Give me a like for the Saints. Give me a love for the Vikings. I will lean towards the Saints, but it is a true toss-up for me. It's also a true toss-up on BetDSI. It is a pick-em game right now, and you can bet on it if you feel confident one way or the other. Go to chatsports.com/bet. Use promo code LIVE120 for a 120% deposit bonus. Put down $100, they'll give you $120 for free for a grand total of $220 to bet with on BetDSI if you use promo code LIVE120 at chatsports.com/bet. All right, one last rumor again with Minnesota. Dalvin Cook sounds like he is going to be out until after the bye. Remember, go all the way back to week 2. Had that hamstring injury, and it's never been right since then. At this point for Cook, I'm kind of concerned if he'll actually ever be healthy, because for whatever reason, Dalvin Cook just cannot. So he's had some bad luck in there too, but the hamstring issue has not gone away. Good thing Minnesota kept Latavius Murray. It sounds like Cook will miss the next 2 weeks against the Saints and the Lions.